Hi everyone, this is Diane. I have now gotten to the point where these 5 signatures are ready to be sewn into the journal. I'm so happy about that. I do have to do a little more work with the other one just to catch it up with what this is, but it's almost done. But I wanted to start working on a video showing you how I will attach these signatures to this cover. And I know I have done these before, but I'm just going to do it again for those of you who are interested. I have my cover here, and I have the spine fabric sewn on so I can see the stitches right here. But I took a pencil and marked the center line to help me out. I have this piece of a thin, flexible hanging file folder, and I marked the center point at the top and the bottom so I can line it up when it comes time to glue it in. This is what I will sew the signatures to, this piece right here. But I have to have the holes for stitching so I have everything even. So I marked out, and it looks messy because I had to move a couple lines over, but I know which ones I need to mark. So sorry about the confusion, but there are 5 lines. I did the center one, and then I just kind of measured out for 2 more. I usually only have to do 3, but we have 5 signatures in these journals. So I'm just going to poke a hole through all of these marks. I should have gotten a head start on this. We have 5 holes across and 5 up and down, so 25 holes. Now I will mark them. I could have held this together and punched them both at the same time, but I'm always afraid that I'm gonna wiggle it out of place. So I can control it better if I mark it or punch it in the paper first and then poke through the holes with my pen. Just have to make sure that the pen nib goes through the hole and makes the mark. Yep, I have 5 marks there. Okay. I put a T on this, so that's the top. So I'll mark T here. I will have to patch this video together because I'm not going to, I don't think I'm going to show actually sewing the signature on. Maybe I should, I don't know. But I've done that before. So now I'm going to poke the hole in the template, or the spine, I guess. The other piece was the template. There's a fold line right here, and it's throwing me off because I think that should be the center, but it's obviously not the center. have to poke holes in the signatures. So I'll just show you how I prepare the signature. I'll need those. I already have things in the pocket, so I will remove those as I prepare the signature so they don't fall out while I'm sewing. So I'm just going to kind of move the page up or down, depending on where I want it. Sometimes I want it in the center. Sometimes I'll put this one up higher, just slightly, and this one down lower. And I did this upside down. Little Mickey Mouse heads are upside down here, but I have it stamped and decorated. So I'm leaving it. It's mine. This one's mine. I don't know if I did the same thing to her journal. I didn't look. So I just put the binder clips on to hold all the pages in place. And then I kind of close it and feel it with my fingers, and this one doesn't feel like they're tight together in the fold. So I release it, pinch it, and put it back on, and that's better. So for this, I don't need to what am I trying to say? I don't need to mark the paper first. That mark would show on this because I can keep it in the right into the fold, so it's not a problem. As long as I don't shift the paper up or down. But if that happens, and when I flip it over like that, I can always recenter it like that. Okay, I forgot a step. I forgot about the fabric. So I punched the holes in this, but I should have done that after I glued it to the fabric. I'm using this black and red plaid, and that will be glued into the signature like that, into the spine, I mean. So that's okay, because it was just a step I didn't need to do, sewing or punching the holes, because now I'll just have to punch them again through the fabric. So I'm going to glue this to the fabric. And I creased it in the center. I have the center mark. And that doesn't matter terribly because I'll be putting another fabric over. Let's see, once this is glued in, I'll have another fabric over it. So these don't have to be exactly even. And before I add the signatures, I will glue this over the end. So we have a nice clean top and bottom. I know this is wrinkled, but the glue is going to help. And now I just need to punch the holes. And this is the top with the selvage edge. I'll remember that. It says T here, but I covered that up. And the only reason that matters is because if your holes are off just a tiny bit, going up and down, you might sew one in one way and then punch the holes and sew it in the opposite way. And I've done it before, and the signatures don't line up. Like they're, even if it's just a fraction, one is a little bit higher than another, it bothers me. So I was taught through YouTube videos way back when I was learning how to do this, to mark the top and sew them all in the same way. Okay, now I'm ready to sew into the signature, or into the spine. So I'm going to take my neutral colored thread because this will not be showing on the outside of the journal. So I'm just using a neutral. I measured 3 lengths of the page and I added just a little bit, just for security. This is a waxed linen thread with several strands, so if I pinch it with my nail to kind of flatten it, the wax will hold it in place and it'll be a flatter piece to try to get through the hole of the needle, the eye. And it is a large eye, but this isn't super big. Could be bigger. But you have to be careful. You have to have a not too fat needle. For example, I have needles that have big eyes, but the shank of the needle is really thick and it would make the holes in the paper too big. So if you can find one that has a big eye and still has a semi-slender body, or shaft, I think it's called, that's the perfect needle. All right, so I do want the knot to be on the outside. This has to face up so that it looks pretty in your journal. Don't sew it on like that. I want the knot to be on the back side because it'll be glued down into the journal and it won't show. So I'm going to put my needle in the back, in the center hole of the first row, because this is the first signature. And then into the back of the signature itself. And leave fumbling here. I got twisted. Leave a nice long tail so it doesn't slip back out while you're pulling on things. Then go up or down, doesn't matter. See, this is quite loose here, so if my thread was shorter, it would have come out. And then I can feel through the fabric where I had punched a hole. Then you go back down. And with each stitch, I pull on the threads to make sure that each stitch stays tight. Then continue up in the same direction that you were going. and then come back down to the second one. Skip the middle and go down to this one, the fourth hole. See how loose that is? That's why I tighten every time. And then go down to the last hole. And make sure you're staying, hang on, I'm going to go through here. Make sure you're staying in the same line of holes here. Don't sneak a stitch over here. We're almost done with this one. Now we're going to go back up, fill in this gap up to the next one. And when you're entering a hole where there is already a thread, you must be careful not to pull your needle up in the middle of the thread. Like I said, it's multi-strand, and you can split the thread by sticking your needle up right into the thread, and that weakens the strength of your stitches, because you can't pull it tight if one thread is in the middle of another. It just won't tighten very well. All right, so now we're back up to the center. We're going to go back down into the center and come up on the opposite side of the vertical thread. If you come up with both ends of your thread on one side of this thread, you can just take your needle and go under it and pull it out so that each thread is on the opposite side, and that way you can tie your knot and it will contain the vertical thread, holding it tight. Cut your threads tight or short, because we know in this case we're just going to glue this down into the signature, and we don't need to do anything fancy with the ends of the thread. So then I just have to do that. I actually sewed it into the last row. So this is now my last signature. I wanted this to be the first. I'm not going to take it apart. I could, but I'm not going to. So this is my journal anyway. So then I just have to do it 4 more times. So it doesn't matter, obviously, if you do the first or the last signature first, but I would put them after this. I would go in order, so I'm not trying to sew in between two, you know. Once I get those other signatures sewn in here, it'll be time to add them to the cover itself, and I'll be right back to do that with you. I'm back. I have all 5 signatures sewn on to this little piece of cardstock with a fabric over it with wings. And now I will show you how I will attach it to my cover. I can see there are 5 signatures, so I can see right here where the center of my spine is, because that's where the middle signature is. So that will help me line it up on the marks I have made on the center. I didn't mark the center all the way at the top because that part might be visible. Yeah, just a little bit would be visible. So to do this, I am just going to apply liberally some Fabri-Tac glue. I just filled this bottle so I don't have to fuss with it too much. And I'm just going to put it on the cardstock part and the fabric, but just this middle part, not the wings yet. And make sure I put glue on the knots. And I sewed that last signature, which is actually the first signature, in with the knot inside instead of on the outside. Force of habit, but it's my book, so I don't care. Okay, we've got lots of glue on that. Now I'm going to line that center signature up with that little mark I made. And I will do the same at the bottom. Let me see if I have that right. And then press that glue down. So I go in between the signatures and press. You can use a bone folder or something. Kind of hold it in place. Fabri-Tac dries quickly. Just want to give it a couple minutes to dry here. And I already have fabrics for the end paper space ready to go. I'll have to sew my daughter's together and glue it in, and then I'll be able to do a flip through with you in the next video, I think. Okay, now I'm going to add glue to the wings. So I decided to use these new fabrics that I bought in fat quarters. I made 2 pockets out of each of the fat quarters that I bought. So I still had enough that I could make a front and back end paper. I got a little glue on the back of this. I can make 2 end papers out of each fabric, but I knew that Judy and I would both want this one. So I decided to give us one of each, one for the front, one for the back. And I wanted to put the Mickey in the front, but I have Minnie in the front of my journal because I put my signatures in backwards. I put the one I wanted first is the last one, and it has Mickey and Minnie. So I'm going to put my Minnie here and the Mickey on the back. But I can do it the other way with Judy's. And I just tore it. I didn't fold edges under or anything like that. If you wanted to, you could tear it with extra width all the way around and then fold the edges under to give them a finished look and then glue it down. Get this glue off my hand so I don't transfer it to any other part of my journal. I could have made this wider if I wanted to cover up more of the wing. But I kind of liked letting that plaid show. And I could finish that off with a trim, which I probably will. I love this Mickey fabric with all of his expressions. I might take some of the scraps of these, the Mickey and Minnie fabrics and cut out some of the faces and glue them on pages for embellishments, or at least have them in our stash of items we can use as we work in our journals. This one's a little bit too long. And I forgot to include a ribbon in there to tie it with. Well, I couldn't find a ribbon I would want to tie it with, so I'll just wrap something around it. I was thinking maybe I could pull this open a little bit and tuck some ribbon in there. But let's look at something I can use to finish off the edges. And I might put a pocket on the back cover. I don't think I will on the front. I cut 2 pieces. Oh, it's right there. And another thing I can do is to just kind of do an invisible stitch to stitch the top of this spine fabric to the cover fabric. So I would just stitch around there just to hold that in place. That's not necessary, but just for extra insurance that it's not going to pull out. Otherwise, I'll need a tie around it, and I'll have to choose something to put a pocket on the back. But this is done, and now I can get going on putting my daughter's journal together. I can't wait to show it to her. I did take this to the sewing machine just before I glued everything together and stitched around this ribbon because it kept wanting to pop off. So, see, it doesn't stay down very good. So I'm going to sew around this before I forget and have it ready. Thanks for coming along with me to see how I put my signatures into the fabric cover. I hope it was informative. I know I've done it before, but many people who have seen it watch it again and say that it refreshes their memory of how to put that together. And many of you haven't seen it before, so there you go. I hope it was helpful. I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you're having a creative day. Bye.